Hello, everybody. It is the Warzone Heresy Scotland podcast, back again after a brief hiatus. It's me, Nick, and I am joined by my other friends, who will introduce themselves now. In any particular order.
Silence. Hi, I'm Graham, and also known as Warzone Heresy Graham.
Oh, I'll go next. And I'm Craig.
And I'm Chris. See, I was just being very polite there because Graham jumped in
We're
early right at the start.
We're a bit rusty.
Yes, so we are here today to talk a little bit about an event that we have run recently called The Depths of Gehenna, which is
Part one.
Yeah, part one, indeed. But before we get onto that, as I'm sure all the listeners will be dying to know, what have you all been up to in the hobby recently, gentlemen?
So I've just been kind of almost redoing Alpha Legion. I used to have I still do have quite a big Alpha Legion army that I've been just gradually repainting basically from scratch into a different scheme, adding a few more things to it. I've got a couple of rapiers just sitting on the desk with laser destroyers that I'm working on tonight. And yeah, just gradually working away at that. Really, I've got various other projects in the wings at the minute. I've got some orc boys and some orc stuff for some Badab. Yes. I think that'll be funny, and I like the idea of causing chaos. Just various other kind of small projects, and I also have some Conflict 47 stuff arriving soon.
Finally.
Finally, I know. Chris has been browbeating me for months now.
Now, is this the bolt action stuff, or is this the werewolf Hungarian Nazis or whatever?
All the werewolves and illicit AIs forever.
I'm just basically making GI robots, but times by 100 because they're designed to kill Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing that could be better than bolt action for all the value stuff would be bolt action with werewolves and robots. So those excellent Warlord games just completely sorted that out for us.
Yeah. all those letters you sent with your bits of family members attached probably worked.
Yeah. The Zodiac code, they cracked it. It's good.
Yeah.
What were you, Craig?
It's been a bit quiet, but there's been an awful lot of ZM events. We're going to talk about one of them, and we've got another one coming up next month that I think we're all attending. As you would expect, with so many events featuring ZM, Breachers have featured heavily. So kind of dusted off the Alpha Legion. I've finished one set of Breachers and some Tarantula turrets, which I think were pretty fun at the event at this time. So they'll feature in the next army, but I need more Breachers. Like you can't have enough Breachers for ZM.
No, Breachers are very strong now. Having that extra save is very strong.
Yeah. I mean, I've similar to you because we're going to Cydonia. I've started the Breaches, but it's also because I realised that I have absolutely no line in my Thousand Sons. At least my Precision nominally have some line. 2 editions have been like, I can just make them all my Terminator's troops with Guard of the Crimson King, lulled me into a false sense of security, and now I'm like, I can't score any objectives. Oh no. So putting some Breaches in there definitely makes a lot of sense, but also it just works with the Psychic Siegebreaker theme that I'm going for. And I've been trying out my 3D printer, trying to get got some new bits for a Siegebreaker to build off the base Mark II Centurion from the Saturnine box that I think looks pretty cool. Yeah, so that's what I've been working on.
Cool. Well, I have been doing militia or not. Kind of slightly complicated. So it was an army that had existed in various forms in Imperial Guard, but never sort of built and painted. Managed to convert it over to militia, and Rich at Whitewash Studios has been doing the painting. So very pleased with that. It's come together nicely. We're at the Muster of a Prees event in Perth that Chris, or Elemental Troll, as he's nom de guerre, had arranged, which was really good fun. So yeah,
this was more militia than Marines. Militia. Yeah, this was the all militia event, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was militia or solar ox, and I think apart from the organizer who has a very large, very nice solar ox army, everyone was running militia in various sort of guises. So it was quite good to see just the other sides of Heresy. It was much bigger armies. I think was the big takeaway I had. Even at I think it was 2,000 points with some extra free units. Even that every army was just 50, 60, 70 models plus comparatively to maybe half as many if it was Marines. So it was good. It's been a fun project. Hopefully, once I get some nicer pictures, I'll get some of the fluff and some of the background up on the Facebook. Hopefully people can enjoy what's a slightly retro sort of project. A lot of models deep from the bits box.
No, it looked a very good event. It looked very cool. Lots of nice armies, and it's a bit different. You know, as Chris said himself, it's to have the kind of different mortals effectively fighting, which is probably more realistically representing the heresy that Space Marines were probably still very few in number for all the battles in compared to the millions or billions of regular mooks effectively that were sent to their death.
Yeah. This is the thing that I've been thinking of with me and John Luke have also been playtesting the Excruciation campaign, and I have been I would really like to also test it with the militia army, because one of the mechanics that I'm trying to work in there is that it's much easier to replenish the like militia and solar orcs units, so that the Space Marine forces are getting slowly whittled down as the games go on, but everybody who brings like a base human maybe starts at like that kind of a bit behind, but because you can just keep flooding wave after wave of men at your transhuman warriors, then you eventually kind of pull through in the later games by just being able to be like, oh, I can just put everything else back on the board, and you've got to put 75% back on.
That may be fun to playtest, because I hadn't thought of that way. That I guess the average like cost of a militia unit head to head is probably about, well, considerably cheaper. I think it's like 90 points or 100 points or something for like 20 dudes.
Yeah, no, they're not expensive. And I think there's still quite a few good options you can do with militia. Quite a few different kind of paths you can take, isn't there, with them? It's not like you must bring these units.
Yeah, I don't think there's any units that are just so obviously better that we're not skimming through the rules. I mean, it's very much a narrative sort of hobby army. It's not really, I've not really thought of it in rule terms, but when you skim through the rules, nothing really particularly jumped out. Maybe rapiers. Rapiers seem good just generally for all armies that can take them.
Yeah, rapiers are pretty good. I mean, I think every army in this edition needs to bring a little bit of punch with them, and rapiers are the easiest way to bring it. Like these mortal events really excite me. I think like it's great to see people bringing something different and playing different games. It kind of highlights what heresy can be, because in another game like 40k, people would balk at the idea of like scooping their models off the table every single turn, but that's just part of the fun of heresy.
Yeah, and the late joiner, Monsieur Alex.
Hello, joined at the best time. Model scooping off of tables. That's always a fun time, isn't it?
Yeah, we've been talking about mortals and the must have appris. Although in my head I keep thinking it should be like Aper, or like my brain keeps thinking Aper, and then being like, how do you add the A to that?
Well, I thought it was the muster of April and booked the wrong weekend off in the month of April. So that was hell shambolic organisation standards and flakiness. That was a belter. But luckily colleagues dug me out of that one.
Good. Well, why don't you tell us what you've been up to in your hobbying time?
Not much, really. After the last event, with my flash painting a couple of units from my other Black Shields army to my Executioners / Black Shields army, I've just been kind of list hammering for a 30k event I've got next month, maybe the month after. I'll need to check my diary.
Okay.
2.5k will be my second 30k event, so I need to try and get some more units for that. Yeah, I'm gonna run them again, because they're my best painted army. They look cool. It's a great excuse to run 2 Cestus Assault Rams, even though in 30k they're terrible. But yeah, that's basically my hobby time, has just been list hammering, really.
Oh, since we touched on the last event, we should probably get to actually talking about that. So Gehenna, Depths of Gehenna, Part 1. Chris, Graham, do you want to say why it's Part 1?
Yeah, a few reasons. I guess the first thing was we had planned to do a Zone Mortalis event towards the end of second edition, and then we sort of pivoted to other events. And then we thought, oh yeah, we'll do it in third edition. And then obviously with the great planning as always, there was at that stage there was no Zone Mortalis rules. So I think it was a bit tricky. I guess we had a few options. One was I suggested with some community members to sort of do a sort of broad brush rewrite of the second edition Zone Mortalis rules and update them for third. But that seemed a bit of an epic project, so obviously we didn't want to do that. And then we kind of went out to a bit of consultation with the attendee group. I think people started an appetite for the slot for the event we had booked, and people seem to enjoy playing smaller points games. I think just generally, actually, in Heresy at the minute, certainly in Scotland. So we thought we could do a kind of split event where we do this sort of lead in for the story, which was Fires of Elmgast, which was sort of platoon level keep it right, was it 1,500 points, Graham? Or was it more than that?
Yeah, I think, was it 15? Was it 1850? I can't even remember. It was definitely low points.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think it's quite
1850. I
good
think
they
it was.
managed to stay full effect for a new event out in a few months, really.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't realise a lot of the logistics are still the same, but actually the ability to put just missions and test them within, I think it was only a 3 or 4 month window that are
Yeah,
completely
that's right,
different from
Graham,
what you've
yeah.
been planning for is quite an effort, you know.
We kind of held off, didn't we, as a group, because we thought that the Zone Mortalis rule surely must be on the horizon. And then I think there was the roadmap they released, didn't they? And the roadmap kind of said, oh, goodness, I think the roadmap was like months after the event slot, so we kind of had to go back to scratch. So, yeah, so this was the kind of the original sort of thought behind doing a Zone Mortalis event in 3rd edition, which was always going to be about a love letter to our very first event, which Nick and I ended up running. That was right. You got COVID for one of the 100th times you had it, Graham, didn't you? So you missed out on that one. That was in the before times when coronavirus was something to be dreaded and feared. So it was kind of a bit of a love letter to that, wasn't it? Which was good. And I think rightly, again, keep right, Graham, you and Nick and the other guys had tested the missions, and the kind of missions had sprawled from 4 or 5 to sort of 8, I think you came up with, and then our usual kind of special mission. So it was a bit long to do in one weekend or one day.
I think we worked out there was something like 8 missions plus or minus some variables as well in the missions. We thought we could either do it over a weekend, but we knew it was going to be 2 long days, or we could try and split it and do it 2 separate days. I think even for logistics, it is a big commitment for people to come from effectively all over the country and play a whole weekend that's functionally a 12-hour shift each day. And it is a slog. We are there to have fun, and it is fun, but it is a slog as well. You see that from our side of you, and you see that from the players. They do wane and get tired towards the end. I certainly think they seemed to enjoy it. There was kind of the good final mission there at Gehenna seemed to kind of perk them up a wee bit because it was a bit chaotic. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I think it's
I think you've always got to be careful with the amount of missions that you have, because I think almost invariably, especially for like these big events, you get to like the 3rd or 4th mission of the day, and everyone's just like, you can see there's nothing going on behind the eyes. People are just moving models out of like force of habit, and you want people to kind of be good to the last drop, as it were. And I think that the last mission I think perked everybody up, which
I think even just from the perspective of getting time to hobby, I mean, I don't know if it's maybe just because we're all just getting a bit older. I think a lot of the sort of Horus Heresy players are kind of a wee bit older maybe than, they're not teenagers, most people. So actually getting like time off from your work or your friends or family or other interests is a big time commitment, and it's a lot of time asking to people to give up, a weekend in the spring. So I definitely think Graham's right that doing it over like 2 weekends is something that EOS should maybe be more receptive to, and that way you kind of get double the fun. You have obviously double the organisation, but you probably attract a wee bit of a broader crowd to the event. Cause that was one thing that was pleasing to see, where we obviously, Graham maybe wants to talk us through. We kind of changed venue from somewhere we hadn't been before for an event, and so that I think brought some new people into sort of the scene, if that's what we call it.
Yeah, I mean, we switched venues to Dominion and Air, so we've all been, I think, most of us, Alex hasn't, but all the rest of us have been to Dominion at least a couple of times, just playing kind of pick-up games type thing, and we got chatting to the owner, Rob, and he seemed quite, receptive to the idea of running Heresy events. Fortunately, not a great community, really, I would say, in Air. Per se, I know there's people interested, but it's get people interested in sufficient numbers that they can then be self-sufficient and run their own events, and not even running their own events, but have like a community of people who will actually be able to play games. If you've only got 2 people playing and one person decides they're sick of it, then that's it, the community's dead. So it's partly trying to get some interest going in there as well. I know there's people that are interested. Hopefully people can come and see there's events in progress and there's kind of feedback and stuff. I think there's a few people kind of chatting away on the sidelines, but yeah, hopefully going forward we'll see more events. I think we'll be better placed, I guess, to get some local players. We'll always try and get local players from wherever running the event in, if possible. You don't want to go somewhere and take over their hall for the weekend and say, actually, none of you guys are playing because we've sold the tickets to all these guys from Glasgow.
Yeah, I think that's really important, Graham. Actually, the last few events we've done across the country, and it's been really good that you say where local players have maybe, wouldn't say been put off, but maybe wouldn't be keen to go themselves to an event with a group of players they've never met before somewhere else in the country. Maybe they've not got much experience of travelling in, if you're down in the far reaches of Dumfries or Ayrshire maybe coming all the way up to the Central Belt or into the West Coast, maybe not motivated. So it's good to take the event on tour a little bit. I think we're not bad at doing that now. We've got plenty of crates of terrain to haul about with us. Or it sure feels that way.
Yeah, I know. I think they're all behind me somewhere. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's always good to try out new venues anyway, and kind of almost like pop-up heresy events all over the country, and just to see what the audience is like. And people are. I know Alex kind of wins the prize usually for longest distance. People are traveling a huge distance. Sometimes 2 or 3 hours up down from Dundee, and then 2 or 3 hours back at night after for like a 1-day event. I think that's quite a commitment. So we've got to try and be receptive to moving it about, so people can come to events a bit closer sometimes as well. But I was quite happy with the event. I think the venue ran quite well. A few wee issues, but there's always a few wee issues with things. Nothing major, nothing like causing issues going forward. Hope is to hold the second part of Gehenna there as well, but we'll come back to that a bit later on. But yeah, no, it's a nice venue. It's a good shop if you like your Magic the Gathering, if you like your kind of Yu-Gi-Oh and your Pokemon and your card games. It is a good wee store for that as well.
Yeah,
definitely
good communities there
recommend.
for it.
Rob and all the store staff, I think, made everyone feel very welcome and part of their community. So that was great seeing. Very good of them.
Ice creams being offered mid-event is always a
yeah.
I was right, yeah. Although Nick knocked the Fab on the head and wouldn't have it.
He did. Yeah.
It's an outrage.
Look, I you tell about numbered here. I just don't get it. I'd like to have ice lollies. I'd like to have chocolate. I don't really like to mix the two of them. I don't understand what's so strange about this.
I said exactly the same thing, but they seem to have forgotten about that. So it's just you on your own, Nick.
Yeah. To be fair, Nick and I were sitting in a corner by that point.
Go on, Alex.
Cheers. I didn't want to interrupt any rage I was about to kick off. I'm always happy to see that play out. Yeah, I was going to say, it's been interesting. Every time that because I'm so distant now, every time I've come up for like an event, it's usually been somewhere different. And there's always been people that I don't know already, or that have like just joined the chat group and have been like, okay, these people aren't like mega weird. Let's go and see what their events are like. And by the end of the event, everyone's always saying, oh, it's awesome. I'm definitely going to the next one. And that's so good. Is moving around, getting new people, and sort of building the community as a buzzword. But it's been really cool to see. I think you guys have really done well on the planning and going to different places and really kind of trialing different locations to see where we get like the best environment for people to enjoy games.
I think that's a good point, Alex. Because you end up trading off, don't you? You say if there's an environment that's very controlled, for want of a better word, like a hall or a rented space that's quite bare, then obviously you can control everything minutiae all the way through the day. But in a store that's someone else's store, obviously you don't have that control, but you probably have some atmosphere around an event that's maybe slightly different. Yeah. I thought that certainly in Dominion it was quite busy and like loud in a good way. There's a bit of atmosphere between games and stuff. And although we were in our own little sequestered sort of run of tables away from I think it was a card tournament that was on in Pokemon, there was still enough sort of vibes around the whole event space. It was quite nice. That's maybe a bit different from maybe when we were in Dumfries, and it was a very controlled space. It was literally a hall, and we had our own kitchen and everything like that. And the only people on site for the whole weekend in Dumfries were people associated with the event. As you say, it's really nice to meet different people that maybe you wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah,
I think you're right. And I think just before we go into the next bit,
I think it's worth kind of pointing out that where we were sort of like, so outside. There's the front of the shop where the card games were going on, and then there's a space out the back where we had 7 tables. But we still felt like we were really part of the shop, and it was very different to when we were in Dumfries because there were people not associated with the event wandering in, and they were seeing the mods and they were asking questions, and that felt like part of the benefit because we were spreading the awareness a little bit more. Whereas Dumfries, like no one knew we were there.
That's the way we like it. I think, to go back to just before we move on to the next bit, I think it's Chris made a post. I think it was quite good that there was a lot of laughter heard over the weekend and just people generally having a good time. I think that's always good. It sounds a bit kind of cringe, doesn't it, as the EO team to say that, but it's actually good to hear laughter and see people having fun. And it's nice, I think Chris will agree, and so Nick as well, it's refreshing to go to a venue where the kind of owner and the team behind the venue are really enthusiastic and keen and asking lots of questions and going about themselves, not just kind of impassive, I guess, is most polite way to put it.
Yeah.
It was nice to have people that, as Craig was saying, kind of wandered through. There's a couple of sort of gamers or families or, you know, just people in the shop that were buying things kind of pop through and kind of engaging about chat about, oh, what's this? Oh, the models look cool. The game looks fun. Everyone seems to be having a good time. Well, that's brilliant. It just kind of had a sort of positive sort of atmosphere, which is, as you say, Graham, is really important and sometimes not always the way of it, unfortunately, sometimes if you're playing in store. So it's good. Yeah, definitely. Good to know that you've secured as a date for the second half of the event in the same store so it can go back to finish it there.
Yeah. 24th of October, gents, buy your tickets. There's still some available.
I'm just going to hold the Skynet hostage to say, like, I'll run that. Although with all the tools that are being developed by the team using various AI things, maybe my job will be made redundant.
I know. I know what we do. We don't need Excel spreadsheets anymore. We'll just pack it up. I know.
Would you just run it like a telly event? We're just all at home. EOing.
The dream.
Well, that's already been trialed, hasn't it? I think one of the first events I came to before I was part of the team, there was a little face on the screen watching from afar.
Yeah.
There you go.
That was right. Yeah, that was.
I think that was the second time Graham got COVID.
I know. It just read my mind. That I don't.
It was the second time I got COVID related to an event. It wasn't the second time I got COVID by far.
Yeah. I think I don't know how many COVID infections down the line that one was, but that was another one. That was right.
We should probably actually talk about like playing the event rather than just the venue. As good as that was, we had so we had 7. Was it 7? It was 7 tables.
Seven tables, and then a secret table.
Yeah.
So that was right. Yeah. So for people that follow us on social media, please do. The community group. One of the things we've been posting up for the last few events, not just for the event attendees, but people who may want to play bits of the story themselves and their own pickup games, is what somewhat. I'm trying to find a word that's not wankily, because presumably that will trigger like our 18 age, klaxon somewhere in the depths of the internet.
I'm pretty sure me swearing at some previous point in a podcast has done that, so we're okay.
So I can get that's come out 1 per episode. Profanity was to do like a terrain primer, as I called it, but sort of high floating, but essentially all the terrain sets that we designed for the story, and we had a separate document that kind of outlined the kind of connotations of that and a little bit of the lore for that area. So in broad strokes, the sort of Gehenna event is based the planet Gehenna in a sort of manufactory platform that is kind of more analogous to like a sort of gigantic super oil rig come hive city come under sort of hive slum type situation.
I was kind of imagining like a sea-based version of the is it the Mortal Engines?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely an inspiration. The Mortal Engine stuff's really cool. So it's kind of like, I guess London from Mortal Engines if it was at sea. Hadn't thought of that. That's a good dupe for it. And one of the things that we could have really enjoyed around the setting was trying to bring in some inspirations from sort of classic sci-fi, horror movies set on submarines and things like that. So we could have had the tables set around that way, and that was to represent the different decks all the way through the Tethys Manufactorum, as we called it, and it kind of took us from the table that was like the kind of top deck with our landing structures through kind of loading docks and manufactory levels to habitation zones, and then a sort of research deck, and then finally into the very bottom, appropriately named the bilge, which was a kind of sprawling kind of underhive type setting. So all our terrain sets were kind of pitched at that, and I thought it worked well. They're quite congruent with the setting we had wrote, and then also the terrain primer, doing some graphics and some artwork to match them. So we kind of put that out there beforehand, so that when attendees arrived and they kind of knew they were playing on a board, hopefully they had. Craig and Alex might talk about it later. Hopefully, they had kind of some idea of where that board sat in the wider event and the story, and added like a little bit extra to it, rather than when you maybe play an event and the table's not very congruent either in like color palette or terrain set or even scatter, and it just feels a wee bit disjointed. That can sometimes distract from the kind of narrative aspect of the game. So that's where we're at. And as you say, yeah, we had, I think, 8 tables to start with, so 16, which isn't too bad. I mean, there's not many full zone mortalis events on the go, I would say, and certainly in Scotland, I think we're the only group that's ran like a full. Well, now we've done it multiple times, full ZM weekend, so that was cool.
Yeah,
and then we had a special kind of, as we always do, a kind of NPC PvE type setting. And again, I know we don't talk about the event hall again, but it was cool because they had like a separate locked space, so we could sequester. Well, I say we, Graham was able to sequester. Yeah. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a kind of idea that kind of came together over the time of that. Wouldn't it be cool if because we've not had the ability, I think, to have a separate space before, and actually quite a thematic room. So we had the kind of room through the back that I think is nominally a kind of live streaming room, or for like bat reps and stuff like that. And we basically converted that into some sort of like dingy hangar. We had like a flashing klaxon light. We had the lights down, some kind of glowing lights in the corner and stuff. Just very thematic. I don't think MD ever actually said, "Can you put the lights on, please?"
Me, every time I walked into the room in the pitch black.
Everyone said that, and you said, no, you'll get used to it.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm trying to be nice.
And then you opened the door after we'd all acclimatized to the dark and let the light in.
Yeah. Burnt the retinas out. No, I think it worked well. In there we had obviously my Thunderhawk, like a nice centerpiece. So it was quite a cool. I mean, all the boards were cool. It was quite a cool board, and obviously playing in the darkness made it a bit more thematic. And then we had wasps, which seemed to be a popular kind of player item, I guess.
Yeah, you had your NPC stuff ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, most of our feedback has mentioned the wasps in a positive manner.
The wasp mechanic for this event was beautiful, but I don't want to get too deep into wasps yet. I wanted to go back to the tables before we go down the rabbit hole. The table setting, for like the entire event, was awesome. I'm like a stickler for doing like really good thematic terrain, as we probably found out the night before the event setting up, and I spent like an hour and a half setting up one table because it needed to make sense. But the fact that we had that sort of primer go out, and like Chris, you'd been working on the story so much and setting the scene, when you came in the next day and saw the tables, you sort of knew where you were. Like you said, like it was part of the story, so it didn't feel like you said, just going to a random table and being like, okay, so I'm playing my 3 games today. I need my points. Let's win. It was, let's play this cool thematic mission, and I've got to save or destroy whatever we're doing. It was really, really cool for that sort of scene.
Yeah, it's really, I think, since the second event we've brought that out. I think with Chris kind of leading that on. I think with Faithful, was it?
Again,
we had
Elmgast. Yeah.
Obviously, talk about that kind of individualized tables idea we had really since Faithful, didn't we? But we've never actually, up until recently, been able to put it on a table. It's always been like, this table has this particular effect, or this is in the kind of the darkness zone of the world and stuff. So it's nice to actually be able to have the kind of fluff that Chris has done, and then actually mirror that on a table, and actually just say, it's not just a table, it's an effect, it's a matching table. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes through with the tables, and we'll get to wasps and reactors and stuff later. But I think that this event was a really good one for a lot of emergent storytelling that came out of like a bunch of different tables. People's armies, the way that they chose to utilize them to take the objectives we had. I thought a number of armies that played in a way that was well suited to ZM that wouldn't have occurred otherwise. So like Alex Collins, and his Black Shields army that was just all the one with all the champions, but not in the kind of janky broken way, but just like having all the centurions that was really cool watching them run around, just try and solo people to make glorious names for themselves. Was I really enjoyed a number of like solar orcs players showing the transhumans what the bravery of mere mortals can do.
Yeah. No, I think all the armies were quite thematic to it, and just people kind of bought into it, which is always nice to see. I think it's rewarding again for us that people buy into it and actually at least to try to play along to the game. It's not just here's a generic army I've crowbarred into it.
I think the event pack helped with that, Graham, because you guys had spent a lot of time testing and thinking about unit combinations and not to force army compositions, but as Nick says, to support kind of the emergent storytelling. as if armies feel appropriate for the setting. So, like the top of the show, Craig was talking with Graham around breachers. Army lists involving breachers and veterans and Terminator. Just it feels a bit different than taking your usual Heresy army and trimming it down to like 1,500 points and using it for Zone Mortalis. I think almost everyone either had an army built for the event or like heavily augmented for the event, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, I think everybody did buy into it. I think it's one of the first times we've not had to say, no, you shouldn't bring that. That's not really thematic. And I think most lists, having cast my mind back through them, had at least one of the units, but a lot of them were very actually built to fight in ZM, which was really cool, as opposed to, like another army you said, pared down. So it's nice, and hopefully people can bring the same armies if they're returning for the next part of the event. They can bring them and kind of enhance them, perhaps. Post some more things with them. I think that'll be cool to see.
Yeah, it was good. I did like the amount of breaches that were there. Just shields, just look cool. And it was actually quite good because a lot of people, no one really went kind of mad on bringing big scary units. There were a couple of like Terminator blobs and running like 2 or 3 Saturnine Terminators, or 3. Like one squad of Saturnine Terminators because they're new and they're cool, but didn't go like.
I don't think there was excessive amounts of Terminators. Really?
No, it was really good.
No.
Which was interesting, and there wasn't many Dreadnoughts. It was just lots of men, basic men, which was quite good to see. Actually, it's made it probably a bit more neutral.
I don't know whether people still had in their head that there was going to be lots of static sort of objectives to camp, maybe, and that line was going to be quite powerful the same way it would be
maybe
like a frontline game, whereas obviously the missions, because they're custom missions, there was some balancing in there to avoid that, and also there was a whole separate victory point mechanic for the investigators. So again, for the curious, if you look on the Warzone Heresy community pages on Facebook, the event pack has the rules for our NPC Build-A-Bear character that everyone got for free, and that was sort of sufficiently broad in scope that it kind of captured sort of traditional, almost kind of Arkham horror vibe, detectives, inspectors, administratum clerks, all the way through to sort of mechanical magosses, and kind of every sort of combination of warrior and thief and rogue in between. And I think because the Elmgas returning attendees would definitely have known that there was victory points they could score aside from sort of line or vanguard. But I guess because we had some new players that hadn't came to that event, although they had their investigator mini, I wonder whether, I'm thinking of one player in particular who had quite a lot of sort of Marines in line, and I wonder whether if they come back, they might, as you say, pivot maybe to more Terminators or things that don't score quite as many points on the face of it, because it's not needed really for those sorts of Zone Mortalis events.
It's not, but it was good.
I think it did help a lot of events.
Yeah, Alex, it does help with the score. I mean, you had breachers, didn't you? Did you have any tactical guys or?
No, I had 2 squads of breachers as my like core, and then some veteran breachers, and then some Terminators on top of that, and a couple characters. But like again, first time playing version 3 for my sins. Yeah, the line actually did help, but then also Vanguard helped on a couple of occasions because you got like the standard scoring which we'd created for like the mission, but then you had very like few points you could add to that just based off having like line or Vanguard, and it did skew it sometimes, but it still remained balanced because people had brought the right units for the job. I mean, in the army design, when I first decided I was going to come last minute, I already started thinking like, I could bring my Emperor's Children, bring 2 squads of 10 las cannons, because that seemed so mortality. Got talked out of that, but I think I would have been maybe at a disadvantage if I'd not brought something with mine. But it's not like the be all and end all because we have our own scoring mechanic.
I think this kind of hits on a thing that I've noticed with like 3rd edition in general, to go off on a brief tangent of Nick rants about the rules again. I think that what not having any list we had to kick back for, like, oh, here's this kind of complete psychotic unit that's going to tear through people. I mean, I think the Marigal seemed to, there was a concern at one point about it, but I don't think anybody who faced the Marigal felt it was outrageous. I think it shows that the actual like list composition is well balanced. Like you can take like a lot of different units and they can take decent chunks out of each other. But the missions that you get as stock are kind of boring. Whereas when you're at like an event or you have like custom scoring missions that kind of can make the actual missions themselves a bit more exciting, you get the real sweet spot of actual pretty nicely balanced army list. And fun missions that tell an interesting story, as opposed to some of the ways I think third edition missions can end up being, which is my scoring is kind of almost independent of what my opponent is doing, and then at the end we just work out how many points we have, and it's like, I guess one of us won then.
I
Yeah, it was
guess
very
it's
good.
one of these things. Like, quite interesting that we're not the only EO kind of group that are changing quite drastically how you win events, how you win points, how you win games. Because I know the guys in Dumfries are doing a kind of campaign where you need any unit can score with objectives back, like first edition, any unit can score objectives. Line doesn't give you bonuses. There's Vanguard, and I think I'm sure the guys in Dundee will figure something out because most events seem to be changing something with regards to the scoring. As it tells you, without going off on a tangent, the scoring system isn't quite perfect. But that, at least, it's something he's worked on, and most approach it from a different angle, which is interesting to see.
Why don't we actually start talking about some of the missions that you guys played, Alex and Craig, as the people who got to be on the experiential end of all the mad thoughts that we had about how the mission should go and what the mechanics should be. How was it for you, darling?
Do you want to kick us off, Craig? Do you want to go through like yours, and then I'll go through some of mine, and then we can talk about our shared experience?
Yeah, let's do that. So I guess I should start off by thanking Welshie for my ticket when she gave me it 6:30 while I was already on the road to EO the event. But luckily, all was prepared. There was an army pre-written. Someone was going to ask me to play. Someone was going to ask me to play. So I showed up a little bit last minute. I wasn't particularly intending to play, but it was a good opportunity anyway. I brought my Alpha Legion. They were prepped for what felt like pretty generic breaching opportunities. There's some Lernian Terminators, some Breachers, some Despoilers, turrets. Like turrets are definitely in this season.
I thought they were so cool. It seemed like such a good idea in ZM to just have like the sentry guns that just pop out of the floor and shoot you, because that's in my head that's
so
like
fluffy.
quintessential. Yeah.
It was
And
amazing.
also kind of removes the boring first turn of ZM where everyone can't see anyone else. So that created a lot of fun. And there's some headhunters mixed in there as well, because infiltrating up the board seems very ZM. So I got a nice mixture of people. I played Chris in the first game. Chris from Perth, who brought his mortals, who actually managed to beat me at the last minute through tactical usage of statuses. Like I was constantly on top of the objective and not scoring it because someone had a headache or something. I think that highlighted something to me about with ZM is a fun way to play, and it does make mortals more fun because it's not a shooting gallery, so you can play very tactically. Shout out to Chris for completely taking me by surprise and wiping an entire unit in Overwatch with heavy flamers as they walked through a door. That was pretty cool. My second game, I played Alex Collins. Had his sort of mixture of demons and like individual space marines who'd gone a little bit off the deep end.
Nice fucking Wendigo men just running around trying to make stories for themselves.
And that one was fun as well. A little bit more spread out. I can't recall exactly what but we had like objectives that were spread around the board, and like different objectives were activating on different turns. So we never actually ended up in that full on like just brawl in the middle, because people were trying to keep things spread around the board, because next turn the important area was going to be somewhere else. I think that was a draw against Alex. Then I got Lewis. It was nice to play someone I haven't played before, so Lewis Prenti, I think, who brought another Alpha Legion army. So like it's always great to have an Alpha Legion versus Alpha Legion game. They make fantastic games, although the pictures are very confusing when you look back at them.
Everything's just that Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, everybody's that Spider-Man meme. Luckily, Lewis and I have got quite different styles of painting our Alpha Legion, so they do stand out a little bit differently. Very different sorts of Alpha Legion armies there. I mean, he had brought some Dark Angels. I think he had some more Terminators than me. Lots of stuff going on, and that one turned into like a good old-fashioned brawl in the middle, which looked like Lewis was gonna take it at the start, and it kind of pulled back in my favor thanks to some lucky people getting pinned by graviton weapons. That was our enemy unknown mission. So everyone started off with blips on the table, and that's always great fun because you end up playing that sort of trying to guess what's under the blip thing. My lesson from that one playing Lewis is Lewis was pretty good at guessing what I had under the blip. So clearly this is one of those things where what I should have done was just put all the blips in a pile, pulled them out of the bag, not looked at them, and placed them on the board. And I probably would have had more luck. But that was a good fun one. And then I won't go into the last mission. The last mission was against Alex, who's on the call, so we'll talk about that one at the end. Alex, who did you play?
Well, thank you. That was a very smooth transition there. So my game one was a great sort of intro to the event. I had a lot of games that were affected a lot by the board. So this was the first game of the day, and a door basically changed the entire outcome of the game. So it was against Tom with his Blood Angels. Absolutely brilliant, brilliant army. And we'd all set up and it was great. And there's a corridor we're going along, and we're going to meet at the end of this corridor, and it's going to be carnage. And he decided to try and open one of those little single doors. Got that open, charges Terminators through. It was going to be a massacre. Somehow they ended up running. And so I just piled my entire army through this tiny single door and just swept into squishy tactical marines with claws on Terminators. And it switched the entire outcome of the whole thing. So that was a really good game, really kind of quick paced as to how things changed. So yeah, that was a great intro game for the event. And then I had Alan with his Space Wolves. Again, this was a game where vagaries of ZM affected the entirety of the game because he got assigned a unit of strange mortals by the EO team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what they're
These
called.
were like the bilge crew folk who,
Bilge denizens. So it was a 10-man unit. They were actually, the special rules that you give them were actually quite good. So they got sort of stuck in the middle of the board because they didn't really know what to do with them. And they just basically cut the board in two. So both of our Terminator Praetor blobs were stuck on one side of the board with one or two other units. And then all of the breaches, tactical marines, assault marines were all on the other side of the board. So it really off the mega melee units from the squishy 3+ marines on the other side. So it kind of made it a bit of a punching fest. And the only reason was because these bloody mortals just wouldn't die. They just had marines punching them for 3 turns, and they just wouldn't run away. They wouldn't die. They were impossible to shift. But yeah, that again was such a hilarious game because it was just the vagaries of the board made it so unpredictable. And then my third game was against Lewis with his Raven Guard, and that was Craig said, the Blips game. And that was hilarious because he had 2 turrets as well. And of course, turrets infiltrate. So when you're busy placing your Blips down, and he just places one in the middle of the board, it's like, oh, I wonder what that is. They were so annoying. Because as soon as you run past it, you're trying to be sneaky with all your little blips. As soon as you run into line of sight, it reveals who you are. And of course, one of them was hidden behind a wall. I forgot it was there, so I walked through a door. I'm like, oh, I'm being so sneaky with this excellent unit I've got hidden away, and it just appeared in the middle of the doorway and just got ruined. But there was two points in that game which made blips just hilarious. So I was super smart, and I put 3 blips, which each one represented a 10-man squad, all together touching, moving down the corridor. And then he did some Raven Guard shenanigans, which I can't fully explain, and a tactical squad appeared in front of them from nowhere and revealed 30 guys in a 2-model wide corridor, which just exploded and filled with marines. And they just got stuck. They just got stuck for the entire game. It was amazing. Amazing for him and amazing for the game. Terrible for me. But that was very good. And then, of course, in that combat, I got infected by the crazy wasp shenanigans.
Yes, tell me about the wasps.
So the wasp actually came back later. So I think it was he tried to roll the wasp because he had to roll. We'll explain it hopefully. And Graham can take the the head for that one. Tried to roll to have the wasp spawn and burst out of his chest cavity. It didn't work. Rolled again, it didn't work. And we were getting quite disappointed that we weren't getting mega wasps on the table. And Graham just walked past and went, right, okay, roll a dice. Yeah, the wasp game. Kill 3 of you guys, the wasp comes on the table. And we just like had a moment of cheering for the mega wasp appearing, which then just proceeded to murder everything within like a 12-inch radius, which was brilliant. And I got the honor of becoming one of the wasp infected crew. So that was good. But also on the point of blips, it was hilarious because we had our investigator and they were just an individual model. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do some shenanigans. So I sent my investigator off on a death mission, which in fluff-wise, he got lost. He got lost and separated and was just rambling around the corridors. I definitely didn't send him away by himself as a distraction, knowing he's going to get murdered. But he completely distracted an entire combat squad, an independent character, like all pushed to one corner of the table. So that was such an interesting way to see the blips like in action, because that's the first proper blip game I've ever played. It's always one of these things you think,
was that, is that right,
good.
Alex?
Yeah, it's the first time I've actually played it. It's something I've been banging on about for years. Oh, cool. Yeah, I've been thinking, it'd be so good to do it. It'd be amazing, and never actually done it.
Yeah, because that's a mechanic from
it's
like
just very complex,
right?
Enemy Unknown. It's a V1 thing. That's right, and it's usually I think what stops people maybe doing it is actually having blips. So in the event pack, we'd ask people to make enough to cover their kind of army, and then as part of our goodie bag giveaway, I got like blip radar tokens made up for people as well in case they forgot. But it's really good fun. Enemy Unknown, because I just say, Alex, there's all sorts of sort of mind games you can play with deployment, and you kind of put units in combination or not, or do you try and fake people out to get them to trigger. How did it work with your tarantulas, Craig? With the Enemy Unknown, did you kind of knowingly deploy them
as actual sentry guns?
Yeah, sentry guns. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, so with them having infiltrate, I was able to place them anywhere outside of my opponent's deployment zone, carefully positioning them so that they weren't visible from the deployment zone, so that they wouldn't be revealed instantly. But I'd thought about this before I came to the event, so I had 2 units of 2 tarantulas each, so that's 4 blips, and then I had 2 headhunter units as well who could also infiltrate. Even though I was placing blips outside of the deployment zone, it still wasn't immediately clear. And also, I had
Alpha Legion are uniquely placed with that.
Exactly. And then, just for a little bit of fun, between the 4 tarantulas, I bought 3 sets of heavy bolters and 1 set of las cannons, so that there was a chance that you were going to walk round the corner and find a las cannon pointing at you.
I think, given that the kind of Enemy Unknown blip stuff for that mission was very overtly inspired by the sequence in Aliens, where they're like holed up and they've got the radar sort of auspex thing and it's going crazy and there's blips all around them and what's moving is it in the floor. I think the fact you've got like jump scare las cannons is quite cool. You know, you know, maybe that's what they were missing at Hadley's Hope, was dual las cannons.
But that scene definitely came across. If anything, if I could find the sound effect from the sentry guns going off, that's what I needed.
Make the eye on it, Craig. Get the chat GPT to recreate this.
Well, I thought like wall-mounted cannons and things played such a role in, especially the first couple books of the Heresy series. I went back and got the PDFs, and I was going, or the ebooks rather, and I did like a search for like turret or mounted and shit like that. Things like that. And there was like 3 mentions of it, but they were so ingrained in my mind. I was like, that is definitely something that happens in ZM. There's definitely hidden turrets. And there's like 3 mentions in the first 6 books. It's crazy, but it was such a cool addition to use.
I think you're right, Alex. It's weird that the mounted and sort of auto gun stuff is really big in the 40k books. Like in Gaunt's Ghosts, they're always banging on about servitors being wired into like gun nests and on tanks and in heavy bolters and stuff like that. So you're probably right. It's just kind of iconic. The tarantula kit's just really cool as well. Like I've not got them, but certainly I've seen them now up close from Craig's army. I thought they were really smart looking little models.
Yeah,
I think they've done a good job with these. And it's always nice when GW sells you a model which you can build and change the weapons very easily.
Yeah.
Between games.
I would be fascinated to know if anybody in the next event opts for bringing a Master Signal specifically to take the like detachment that just lets you bring all the tarantulas.
Well, that's really cool. They should definitely do that.
Absolutely should. A whole army of tarantulas, nothing else.
Probably revealing the depth of my sort of ignorance here, but you say change the weapons. Is that something on the kit, or did you mag them to do that? Is it like...
No, so it's one of those ones where the weapons just come with like there's a peg on the side of the model,
Oh, cool.
and the weapons you just twist the
Just
weapons off
slot
and
on.
put them slot on, nice and easy. Yeah,
There's good value for people, as you say, then, to get the utility out of between games. That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was
And
my
then
my
your-
last game
Your final
before
mission. Yeah.
yeah, before playing Craig. And I don't know if you have a better thing setting up this game, but we got taken into the special room to Graham's lair, and it was great because I think
It's
it had
more suspicious than it is.
it was pretty suspicious. But it had been set up so well. I think we talked a bit earlier about how it was set up. But the fact you had like lights, you had the flashing light at the end, you had sound effects. I mean, because I think you'd been playing wasp noises all day, but for the final mission, we had to destroy reactors. So there was a Geiger counter going off in the corner.
Well,
Which, you know, you kinda got
let's,
used to.
let's roll this back.
No, let's not
you
do
say you had to destroy the reactors. As I recall,
Yeah.
there was nothing that mandated the this.
It was the interpretation of the rules. Okay, we know what needed to happen.
Yeah, the actual mission was that there were a number of reactors that could either be held and were worth victory points, or could be destroyed. And if they were destroyed, given that they were like atomic reactors, could cause a cascade failure across other boards. So if your reactor blew up, it had a chance of like doing damage to other reactors on other boards. And I think, to a man, with the exception of Lewis Prenti, I think actually, every other attendee read that set of options and went, so we've got to blow the reactors up.
Yeah, you use the words cascade failure across all other boards. Everyone like, yeah, it sounds amazing. I feel like the rules for that was so good because you read it and it's like, oh, if you're within a couple of inches, you lose some toughness, but if you explode them, the entire board gets -1 toughness, and reactors on other boards start to take hits. You're like, that sounds cool. And I think we may have interpreted the rules kind of ourselves to make it a bit more savage, because I think the actual rules were, if either or one or two of the reactors blow up, then you get -1 toughness across the board. Me and Craig went, and correct me if that is this how it was meant to be read, was, okay, let's blow them both up, and then the entire table will be at -2 toughness, and we'll just destroy each other.
I don't
And
think
people
they
are
were
usually
meant
just
to
saying
sack. I
-2
mean,
toughness
as
and
you
win.
say, I think like
Yeah.
from a mission design perspective, it was supposed to sort of have that old sort of version 1 kind of radphage type feel about it. But obviously that changed pretty dramatically. If you stack the rules on top of each other and go up blowing all these sort of fusion reactors. But to be fair, you were not the only person in the event that did that, Alex. So it was quite a quick
That's good.
round 4, which
Mhm.
is always good at the end of the day. As we've said a few times, I think there's a lot of laughter, a lot of fun. I think when people realised the event was coming to an end, they wanted it to end in a big bang, literally. So worked well.
How many
Yeah.
reactors were left across all 7 tables?
Yeah, of the
I think
the
3,
14
and none of them had full hull
reactors that
point.
there were total, one was left standing. Again, because of the stalwart efforts of Lewis Prenti to desperately keep
Was it
his
only
one
one?
reactor alive.
But that was a good game, because we set up as a we were going to play it properly, and we had a gentleman's agreement that we're going to go for the reactors. But turrets you can't do much about. I think, Craig, you set your turrets up around the reactors, and then I kind of tried to beat my way through them. Eventually, I just ignored one of them, and it was just firing heavy bolts into the back of my squad. I'm like, I'm not going to deal with that. I have to get my last cutter as close to this reactor as I can. And then it all kind of just kind of went a bit crazy, because we had quite a few units left, didn't we? Once the reactors had gone, we actually had a good 70% of our armies left, and just laid into each other.
Yeah, the plan had always been to renege on that gentleman's agreement as soon as it was opportune for myself.
Classic Alpha Legion.
That never actually came out, because for some reason we were both utterly useless at being able to penetrate the
Yeah.
armor of those reactors.
Almost as if Graham had playtested them extensively and had sorted the stat line just so.
Made it not too
But
hard.
probably
no,
worth
but-
mentioning.
I don't know, just to be clear, like we both had like multi-meltas like shoved in the reactor ports, and they weren't doing anything.
This sounds like a skill issue on your part.
I was going to say, it's probably worth mentioning that the actual purpose of the special mission was not specifically that, because Graham, you had spent a lot of time working through, again, as a bit of a love letter to our first Storm Mortalis event. Is it the Psi Arcana from version?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
version was
Arcana,
more
the
like a kind
relic.
of Diablo-esque sort of treasure hunt for attendees. Do you want to talk through, because that was really good fun and something that I hadn't seen at an event before. So one of the things that Graham had taken a lot of time to look at was the Psi Arcana.
Mhm.
So they're sort of war gear items that I want to say about halfway through version 1, was it maybe one of the 4th or 5th black books?
Yeah, it was the 4th one because I think it was Conquest. You could get them
Is it?
in. I think so. Yeah.
And you could kind of buy them, and they were sort of grotesque, as with all things first edition. They're all really cool narratively, but grotesquely overpowered and underpointed. So Graham had sort of updated the stats line, but given we had played through a number of editions with these rules, had tweaked them a little bit. And essentially, as part of the kind of destruction and spree across at the start of the event, people were given this opportunity to kind of play through a part of the Zone Mortalis where they kind of recovered treasures and occult items from we'll see more in part 2 Gehenna, or perhaps not from Gehenna but transplanted there. Were available, and there was some really cool weapons and upgrades, and my favourite was the Nostraman Mancatcher, which was like a close combat weapon. I don't think anyone picked that, but did Lewis pick the Trident or someone?
Yes. Yeah. The World Eater's Trident.
It was kind of randomised. It was a D8 roll. I trying not to give people explicitly the better things. I think the best one for me was the Lewis when he fought with his Raven Guard, killed one of Phil's Iron Warrior guys, and then rolled for basically a cloak of invisibility, which I thought was very cool.
Right. Yeah,
he stole an invisible cloak off an Iron Warriors guy for his Raven Guard. It's just peak storytelling.
Yeah. And this was also where the wasps lived. This was their lair.
Yes. Right. And the sort of lead up to the event, we had sort of teased various, as we're saying, not just player versus player, but player versus enemy. So the enemies were NPCs that Graham DM'd, almost like a kind of Dungeon Master from Dungeons and Dragons. Although we've been using wasps as shorthand, I think they're more technically sort of arthropod creations from the deep sea. But the wasps kind of an infested part of the platform, and then again, obviously inspired by a certain horror movie franchise, they could infect some of their hosts depending on some of the dice rolls in close combat, which was quite cool. But the bit that
when you've got a special rule of ovipositor, I'm like, well, that's no good. Yeah. That's good.
That's bad. But Graham, you had this sort of thing where you could pass on the infection, which was awesome.
Kind of added that as a later on idea of just this could be funny throughout the event on top of reactors exploding.
Yeah.
And I quite think, how can I make this fun? Yeah, and I think it was a D6 roll for each. If you're a unit infected by wasps, it will be one unit you could have, and then I think you had to roll a D6. And if you rolled a 1, D3 guys just died, and a wasp appeared, and it was immediately in combat with that unit, which was just hilarious.
Sort of... Yeah. So one of the things that we do during the events is we also give out like spot prizes for each round. And for round 2, one of the prize that we gave out was for somebody. The investigators gave you the ability to once per event turn like a dice roll into a 6. As Lewis Phillips came up to me at one point, was like, "Here, see this dice roll that I can change. Can I not make it a 6, but make it a 1 because I want to try to infest my opponent with wasps?" And we were like, "Absolutely, you can do that." And so he infested his opponent with wasps, and I think we had quite accounted for the fact that these wasps that were now out of containment in the dungeon room would then like start appearing on other boards as well and infesting other players. But everybody just really loved it. Like I think by the end of the event, half the attendees had like wasps growing inside them.
I think it was greater than 50% by the end of the event, and I think we fell into the trap of people are going to clearly blow up these reactors. They shouldn't. Are definitely not going to infect everyone with wasps. It's definitely not going to be a thing that happens, and of course immediately happens.
Of course, immediately does. Yeah. It's funny because I think it's the total advert for sometimes you do something in an event either with like a rules mechanic, like as you're saying, Nick, around the infection side of things, or just like the model. Like we had like quite big, almost like, I don't know, like heroic 32mm scale sort of insect models that people sort of click with. So people really clicked with that, but people didn't really click as much, I think, with the sort of hive inhabitants. Like we had some of the boards had like denizens of the platform that have turned feral or they've been infected. And people could have played with them and enjoyed them, but it didn't seem as excited by. And we had, is it the Cults Abominatio, like the Chaos Assassin? So we had that kind of doing its own mission, and I think people did like that as well as like an extra layer of that's kind of creepy and a bit weird. What's the agenda there? But wasps were definitely, as they always are, like extremely popular at heresy events.
Yeah, I think it was just the level of shenanigans that they can bring. Because like having like an extra unit or something happening on the board is cool, but having something where you can like just, I want to say like ruin your opponent's day, but in a fun way, is just hilarious. Especially when you both look at each other and look at the table and go, "Yeah, that'll be hilarious. Let's do it."
I just have this image of like 3 Marines kind of going along and just making mysterious buzzing sounds, and the kind of sergeant keeps looking back like.
And it's good actually for anyone on our social medias. On Facebook, there's a good post that's gone up with the AI rendering of a poster about the spine wasps, which is harrowing.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, hated that.
Fun, yeah. Because we had written a lot in the background, but as you say, Alex, trying to like get renders or art that fits was quite tricky. So that was our sort of maiden flight and sort of feeding the abominable intelligence some of the background and how to look. And so I've made up these kind of warning posters, which were quite cool. So yeah, definitely worth checking out, as you say.
Yeah.
And the wasps will return because I've now found the file in Cult 3D to make the same wasp, but on grand scales.
It's just hordes of them.
It's the fact I can scale them up, Nick, in size.
I think this is also to loop it back around to the very start. This is also like a good advert maybe for the breaking up into these two parts, is because having if we'd had all these wasps infecting people and had the like nuclear explosion at the end on day one of a 2-day event, we'd maybe be a little bit like, oh man, how are we going to roll this into tomorrow? Whereas now we've got a bit more like, people have been invested in it, people enjoyed that emergent storytelling, and we can take a bit more time to think about, right, what mechanics are we going to include in for the next time?
See, I think that's really important, what Nick's saying. So as the EO team on a weekend event, often really interesting, cool ideas pop into your head halfway through the event or of the morning of, and it's quite difficult to integrate them. But having like a break point where you've done a day one event and then you've got maybe, I think October, isn't it, for the next half of it, we've got 4, 5, 6 months, whatever it is, to sort out how do you do the story to the next like part of the arc. Because I kind of had in my head what I thought the second event story was going to look like, but there's quite a lot of fun things that happened in the event and now we'll need to build into it. Particularly though we're kind of talking about the last mission quite a lot, I think like having that sort of, there's like a mechanics or reactors or sort of rad phage stuff kind of as a good way to end the event, and it's good fun as Alex has said. But it's also kind of interesting because when you start the second event, your kind of event environment, or as I think the environmental effects and the tables that people are playing in probably will need to, on some level, at least one mission include something about that, which is quite good as the storyteller or as like the mission designer, because it's forcing you to do things that maybe you wouldn't have been inclined to do, but now you've road tested it, you see people had a lot of fun with it, so quite rewarding.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of it.
So this was another example though of the storytelling going on throughout the event. So you talked a little bit about sharing people the sort of the background story and the descriptions of Tethys, and there was pictures to go alongside that. And then as we got closer to the event, we got those like the warning posters, which all look great, and it's like there's constantly that story being built up. And then I get the feeling, I don't know however people who attend the event are going to feel, but the fact that as we get ready for the next part of this story, we can kind of start to produce more of that, hey, remember when this thing happened, material, and then roll that into the story. It feels like, I hope it feels to people like there was an active story and they've almost actually derailed that story and told their own.
Yeah, very much so. I think that's the bit exactly that's rewarding. It's good to sit behind the EO table and you kind of scribble notes. You think, I'm going to remember that happened, or this person said that was really good fun, or now there's a new environmental effect, because there's quite a lot of stuff that will now, as you exactly say, Craig, will bring to the second event in a kind of story sense that we just wouldn't have. So I think it's becomes kind of self-fulfilling in a positive way.
Yeah, like you said, the storytelling is so cool because already in the chat, people are saying like, "Oh, how am I going to like change a unit or bring a new unit that's going to represent the cult of the Wasp?" There's people buying into the whole storytelling, being like, "I'm going to change my army based on the outcome of this and bring it to the next to have that like story of their own army evolve as part of the storytelling." And I think that's just super cool.
Yeah, I think I'll be interested. Once we're also done with like Sidonia in June, I'd be interested to talk to Lloyd and Paddy about that and some of the attendees who've gone throughout that. But I think when we first started out as young EO team, having the disparate planets and there being like a larger overarching story was fun. Having done over the last these 3 events, Gehenna Part 2 included, it being like a much tighter focus on like a very singular story with the investigators that carry through, and then like now the 2 parts of Gehenna. I think having an even more tangible, like these aren't different planets in different systems, but these are things that carry over. And I wonder if Lloyd and Paddy will have found that with like the Sidonia campaign kind of shrinking down. That like that, I think the attendees yearn for the emergent storytelling between.
There's something in this as well. I mean, I think as you say that the inclination probably as EOs is when you go from event to event is to expand your field of vision. So as you say, so I think like the Carthage event was probably like a really good example of that, where we had was Carthage, sorry, Safehold as well. Oh no, Carthage.
Yeah,
the one we did the big
Ironcrag, Safehold, and then
yeah,
Carthage.
Carthage
the last one where we kind of went from sort of haunted house in space, Ironcrag, to platoon-sized games. One part of a front line, and then Carthage was next sort of year-long campaign, and then there was the event at the end of it. So it would be quite good, I think you're right, Nick, to go back. And I think for some events, actually, narrowing the field of view quite consciously just to one particular setting in one place and maybe one event is a bit more manageable for people because obviously we're very invested in the setting and all the lore and the books, and I'm a self admitted geek about all this. You've got quite a lot of things to draw on and a lot of knowledge of the setting when you're doing your writing, perhaps, for the event, but not every attendee is going to get every reference you make or know everything that's happened in a story or a book. So, actually, if you narrow the field of focus, you do make it maybe a bit more manageable for people to consume on the day. I think.
Yeah, I mean, the Safehold Carthage kind of transition is something that prompted me to start mapping the campaign across the galaxy. So I think I ended up with like an A4 page with like what planets have been doing what, the whole sort of at-home campaign building up to Carthage, sort of mapping that and bringing that into the setting. And it was awesome because it built that huge story, but it was really big. This was like a big sort of galactic scale trail across the setting, and it is cool to see the smaller or explore the smaller settings of, especially doing like a 2-part thing like Gehenna. This is something that happened. What happened in that event is going to directly affect what happens in the next one, but it's still in the same place.
Yeah.
So it's actually evolving that world.
Yeah. And the timeline's also much shorter. So I think, case in point, that the last sort of few events we've done have had quite big time skips. Whereas I kind of in my head, sort of the events of Elmgast occur maybe over like a week or 2. So it's a much shorter timeline than we normally do. And then even consciously as the writer narrowing it further, so the sort of events of Gehenna are like in the sense of days. And I think hopefully for the second event that'll bring a bit of momentum into, obviously the missions are kind of almost finished, but kind of bring a bit more momentum into the actual day where you get that feel that things are kind of inexorably out of control, which it was quite good because I think we were hoping that would be the kind of end of the first event. I kept saying I wanted it to feel like the first kind of 45 minutes in like a horror film where you've got a lot of the setup and then all the bad things happen. So I feel like we did really well to get the setup done, and then all the bad things start to happen basically in mission 4, which set us up really nicely for that sort of cliffhanger feel, which I think is tricky in events, especially over 2 days. We've done it before where I think Graham calls it rocks fall, everyone dies, where you struggle with the momentum through the event, and then you're like, right, okay, everyone's dead, let's move on. Do you know?
The planet exploded. Let's go on to the next one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I get my wrist slapped if another planet under our watch explodes.
It's a challenge. It's always a challenge to end an event on something that isn't, as Chris is rightly saying, I call it rocks fall, everyone dies. And generically in 40k, the planet explodes or some sort of shit like that, for want of a better term. And I think every time we've managed to write something that's not quite that, I think that's quite a kind of kudos to Chris for his storytelling, really. It enables me to write missions that match that and vice versa.
Usually the rocks do fall, but then there's something else that happens you didn't expect.
The rocks
Is usually
fall, but the
trying
rocks are
pitch
actually
at, yeah.
wasps.
The wasps are laden with eldritch knowledge, you know.
Yeah.
Can you make wasps
Oh.
haunted? Can we ask the
Yes.
AI that?
I've been waiting for you to ask me that all night.
I think it seems like it was a good event. We enjoyed running it, and it sounds like people enjoyed playing, which is really what you always want to hear. So I guess we already mentioned that the part 2.
Yep, 24th of October. It's locked in, same venue. We have 16 tickets with the potential for 18 because I'll have an extra ZM table by that point.
Yeah. So are there still any tickets, or are we just on reserves now?
A couple of folk to chase up who've indicated their interest. A couple of our old friends from Hull are quite keen in coming, so I'm going to try and come with them. And I think there's maybe three or four tickets once I chase people up left. So yeah,
Sure.
we're doing pretty well. I've not been. I'm sometimes quite aggressive, like you should buy a ticket, but I've not been kind of a bit more chilled recently with events going on and stuff like that. But yeah, don't worry, I'll
Yeah.
make sure we'll be sold out because we always are sold out, even when we have people dropping out. We never really drop significantly below the numbers.
Yeah, I'm specifically trying not to play this event because I think every event that I've been to since I joined the EO team, I've played at. So I'm going to see what it's like to even just attend and not play. It'll be an interesting
just
time.
lurk around the tables.
Yeah,
What's
and
going on
then
here?
I think
I'll
it
still
is
have to
actually
ask
good
Nick the
fun.
rules, but
Like, yeah, Alex, you like it? It's good fun being
yeah,
in the event doing stuff, but maybe not having an army in the case to bring in. You know, as Craig said, you always get dropouts, so maybe don't volunteer too hard not to play.
Yeah. You're our first reserve.
Yeah, you need a ringer. That's right. Yeah.
And then what else is on the docket? Me and Chris, we have some plans. At the start of the year, we went to Alex Collins's one of a Badab Wars event. They'd run up here. We had such a good time, though we decided we wanted to run one as well. Yeah, so we're looking at that for also sort of end of October time, because I think the experience of people who are coming along is maybe a different crowd that usually comes to the 30k events, but are still kind of curious in our events. And we found that because you had this split of, unlike the Heresy where there's a pretty even split of like loyalists versus traitors, there's obviously quite a stark like manpower split between the secessionists and the loyalists. And so we've also been introducing some hazard factions. So the ones we're currently looking at are Orcs and Eldar, based on some of the we're currently having a pick through the old Panopticon V2 Orcs and Eldar rules to see how compatible they are.
The event that Alex ran was really good fun. One of the best events I've been to in years. It was great. Everything from the boards, the theme, obviously Badab's really compelling. Just the organisation day was very impressive. So I think it was quite good to see that there was an appetite, as you alluded to, for maybe non-heresy players to play in a kind of heresy sort of setting narrative event, but maybe more in that 40k universe. But the hazard faction stuff I think is really interesting for that very reason, that maybe people have armies that wouldn't traditionally scan into like a heresy event. So for instance, you might have like a huge multi-edition orc army. It's probably quite difficult to port that over into another like game mode. Whereas having, as we even call it, like a hazard faction, where there was sort of, in future history terms, there was sort of documented orc raids and Dark Eldar raids or stuff like that, where people that maybe wouldn't be able to engage with like what we do as our usual events, but come to something that was a bit more fun. I think it's going to be good. It's going to be
There's a couple different Xenos faction backgrounds to look at. I mean, just to suggest, unless you guys already looked at the King Fluff ones from V2, did a lot of work on random factions. Yeah, but Badab's become such a thing.
Yeah, it's great. As Chris said, I had a great time at the event and was like, I really want to do this again.
Yeah, I was hyped when you brought it up, because I'd been to 2 in Bristol recently as well. So Badab seems to be the flavour of the decade, which is quite exciting.
I think it's because it was like the OG Marine versus Marine sort of setting, wasn't it? You know, and was it 4th or 5th edition? Okay, that's like one of these sort of classic Imperial Armour publications. You know, the double slipcase book, all the lore about the chapters. Most of the chapters were not like the big 5. In fact, apart from the the salamanders. I don't think any of them are like first founding chapters, really, are they?
No,
I think it is that sort of. It seems like it was the prototype for Heresy.
Proto Heresy, yeah, absolutely right, Craig. Yeah, I think it is. So yeah, because it was probably the first time we've seen some of the armor marks as models that were the Forge World resin, sort of Mark IV and Mark V, which is really cool. So obviously we've moved way past that now with sort of model availability, but I think you can now turn out a really cool looking Badab army, probably not for that much sort of actual like hobby budget.
Yeah,
And the
I mean,
army's
mine was
just
made out of my bits
all
box.
looks so totally different. Oh, was
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
my
really cool.
entire Executioner's army, minus the assault rams, was literally a bits box raid. And it was brilliant.
incredible. Yeah,
We've got that planned.
yeah. So tickets to be announced shortly for that, and then Chris, you've been muttering darkly about Sabbat Worlds, right?
Of muttering darkly, that's the word. Well, I guess it's a kind of ongoing thing about the sort of human stuff that we're talking about at the start of the episode. The now militia army started off as trying to port an Imperial Guard army for Badab, and I had so much fun writing crazy lore about Badab Imperial Guard regiments and the Tyrant's Legion and how they integrated. I thought, oh, this is great fun, brilliant. And then I kind of fell off the wagon, on the wagon, off the wagon, and have just consumed all of the Dan Abnett Gaunt's Ghost books on tape over the last couple of weeks, driving back and forth to work. Yeah, and I think obviously he's a very talented writer, and the setting though is just so incredibly rich. So I think I've got some compendium books and background books that I've managed to acquire copies of. You think this just looks like a really good way, similar to Badab, to have a kind of Horus Heresy style narrative event. So people are familiar with the rule set and army list building and all those kind of core mechanics for playing an event, but a really fun excuse to bring toys that maybe you wouldn't use. Again, I was having a look. I was shocked. You could get all sorts of transfers for armies that are mentioned in it. I managed to pick up this a real deep cut Silver Guard Space Marine chapter decals. So like just really corner stuff, really odd things you probably wouldn't see. I thought it'd be quite good to do a day with that, but I guess if Badab goes well, whether hopefully it's a way to sort of road test some of the campaign system you and I have been discussing offline a little bit about how tables, instead of maybe in the microcosm reflecting decks and Tethys and Gehenna, for instance, might reflect a planet or a system of planets, and how ownership might change throughout an event based on the victory points. So I think maybe if that works, it might be good to do a bigger event that's more kind of subsector crusade style scale, which would be bad. Sabbat Worlds. And obviously is it Devlin or Terron Devlin or something is the new K release that basically has
the one with the big old red terror.
Yeah. But the Imperial Guardsmen are basically just the ghosts, are they not? They're kind of like
What?
For those of you sitting at a computer, if you look it up, there's like some. I want to say it's like a kill team box or something. I think it's like Raid on Devlin or something like that. Where
some
it's
sort
got
of kill team box.
There's definitely something going on right now because we've had that, and those are clearly Gaunt's Ghosts. And then
exactly.
Just the last couple of days, we had that Caiaphas Cain model reveal. GW clearly realised that they need to get some money out of these excellent pieces of lore that have been sitting in the background underused.
Definitely agree. But there could, I mean, again, if people are, I'm not a 40k player anymore, but that's the sort of thing. If you could buy box sets that were, I guess, not monopose, multi-pose, I guess you call it, that had all the bits and bobs, I think that would be like a really popular box set to release, whether they'll come in separate kits or not. But you could see whole guard armies for those kind of Imperial Guard models, sculpts would be cool.
I've just looked them up, and they're not even really being sus about it because they've called the Imperial Guard squads from the Terror on Devlin the Spectre Squad.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they're not. They're the models. I'm looking at them right now. They are legit. Like they are just ghosts.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I'm glad you're all kind of like quietly stunned as to what is this crazy person talking about Gaunt's Ghosts and plastics and Tyranids, but
this is
a
good
real
news,
product you can purchase.
I was hoping to try and get some more metal ghosts. I've got about 25 of them from back in the day, including Gaunt and Milo and Larkin and that kind of stuff. But I haven't converted Bragg. But I might just have to buy 50
with all of this going on, then clearly what we have to do is do some sort of Amphelion project next year.
man.
Graham has murmured darkly about that over the
Yeah,
years,
you
in fairness,
have.
Craig, about doing
Absolutely.
Amphilia.
I have the book as well somewhere in the pile of books. I've got the old Amphilia project.
Yeah, that's a cool story in that book as well.
I mean, maybe that one's a little bit more niche. So for anyone that doesn't know what that is, picture Jurassic Park in space with Tyranids.
Yeah.
Yes, that good summary.
Yeah. So exciting things coming down the pipeline, but I think that will probably do it for us for this evening or this morning, wherever it is that you are listening to this. We will try to be more regular with podcasts in the future. But for now, if you like stuff, find us Warzone Heresy Scotland on kind of any of the social medias. Leave comments there or email us at warzoneheresiescotland@gmail.com. If you've got any thoughts or feelings about the heresy or things in general. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm back.